Okay, looks like everybody's here. Shannon, put us on the record, please. Okay, good afternoon, everyone. This is the matter of King Hamby. Could each of you please identify yourselves for the record?
Matt Wayne, Prosecutor's Office.
Dante Conley, foster care worker with Family and Community Services.
Ivan Brown on behalf of Adriana Taylor Hamby.
Rebecca McCluskey, guardian ad litem.
Do we have everyone here that we were expecting?
Mr. Conley, do you have any idea if Ms. Hamby was going to appear?
I'm not sure. I texted her last night to remind her that she had court. I got a message back this morning that basically said, who is this and for who, and I haven't heard back. So yeah, but she should have been aware that, you know, she had court.
Okay.
King's great grandmother, his foster care, his caregiver, she was notified as well that the hearing was today as well.
All right, well, and I think we need to proceed. Anything preliminary?
Your Honor, I would just ask that the court take judicial notice of the file. Thank you.
I will do that. Call your witness.
I would call Mr. Conley.
Mr. Conley, would you raise your right hand, please? You do swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God?
Yes.
State your full name for the record. Spell your last. Well, spell first and last.
Dante Conley. My name is spelled D-O-N-T-E. Last name C-O-N-L-E-Y.
Go ahead, Mr. Way.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mr. Conley, you were the foster care worker for King Hamby, is that correct?
Yes.
And did you file the supplemental termination petition in this case back in November of 2020?
Yes.
At the time you filed the petition, was everything true to the best of your knowledge in that petition?
Yes.
This court took jurisdiction of King back in February of this year. What were the circumstances that led to King coming into the court's jurisdiction?
King was brought back into care for the second time for his mother's, Adriana's unaddressed mental health issues, as well as her substance uses.
There was a dispositional hearing. Do you know when the dispositional hearing took place?
Give me 1 second. It was on June 4th, 2020.
And what was ordered of Ms. Hamby at that hearing?
She was ordered to follow a treatment plan, which followed her attending parent classes, completing a substance abuse assessment, obtaining and maintaining a suitable housing and legal source of income, completing a psychological evaluation, and also completing drug screens.
Did you refer Ms. Hamby to parenting classes?
I did, twice.
Okay, and what happened with the parenting classes?
The first parenting class that she was referred to, my agency actually decided not to go with that parenting classes because we found one that was actually cheaper. However, she was referred for, that first place was called Pam's Place, and she was also referred to Love and Logic, and she has not completed it.
Was she aware that you had made those referrals?
Yes, she was.
And did she participate at all in those classes?
To my knowledge, no. She did tell me that she didn't understand how to do the parenting classes. I informed her as a worker, you know, I just made the referral, and for her to get in contact with Love and Logic, who actually, you know, have the who the referral was made through, and she has not done that.
Did you give her information on contact information for the places to contact regarding the classes?
Yes, and she also had it in her email from when they sent the email for her receiving the classes.
Okay. She was ordered to participate in a substance abuse assessment. What happened with that?
To my knowledge, before it came to my agency, she has not completed it. She also was referred for another to complete a substance abuse assessment here in Wayne County, and she did not complete that one as well.
Have you received any sort of documentation regarding a substance abuse assessment that she's completed?
No, I have not.
Was she referred for a psychological assessment?
She was. I actually was stated that she was referred for one in Jackson County. She was ordered to do one. She was doing it, and then she had an incident where she had some erratic behavior. The psychologist didn't do the psychological evaluation. She told her to leave, and then it was to my knowledge that she was re-referred for the same for the same doctor, and the doctor refused to do it. So she was referred for one here in Wayne County that she did not complete.
Where is Ms. Taylor Hamby living at this time?
It is unknown where she's living. She hasn't provided me at all with an address. The only address I have is the last known address.
And that's in Jackson?
Yes.
So why was she being referred to some services in Detroit?
Because she made a statement as if she was staying somewhere in Wayne County. So because she was in Wayne County, she said that she didn't have any means of transportation. So we were doing as far as referring her to services here in Wayne County.
Okay, so you were referring to different places to try to make it easier for her to attend. Is that a fair statement?
Yes.
Okay. In terms of housing, you said you are unaware of where she is living right now.
Yes.
Have you been able to do any sort of home assessment at any of the places that she's lived throughout this case?
No. When we first got the case from to our county, as far as my agency, she didn't want to give us the address, and then she finally gave us the address stating that she was at a hotel. And then after that, we lost contact. And then I don't know where she's staying. So
when's the last time you've had contact with her?
The last time that I had contact with her was the last court hearing, which was in November.
Okay. Has she been difficult to communicate with throughout the case?
After court, when she lost her supervised parenting times, yes, she was. She was a little behaviorally, making statements and things like that. So yes, I haven't had any contact with her after that.
Okay, so you weren't able to do a psychological assessment with her. Are you aware of whether she's participating in mental health treatment?
No, it's unsure, but I know that she was supposed to have some mental health intake set up, which she didn't show up to the intake process at all. So
when was that?
Give me 1 second. Could I look? On October 26th, she was scheduled to have a.
Have you had concerns about her mental health throughout this case?
Yes.
And can you tell the court what your concerns are?
So concerns as far as her mental health, she wasn't stable as far as when she was offered parenting time. She went and completed one, but it was canceled due to her and the caregiver basically getting into it with the caregiver. So her visit was ended early. A CPS allegation was made the same day stating that King was being abused by the caregiver. However, it was no signs or any, signs of abuse or anything like that. As well as she's made multiple threatening statements that she would go to the home, she would obtain a weapon and go to the home and take custody of the child and flee the state.
Did you make attempts to address those issues when those threats were made?
Yes. And she
What did
told
you
me,
do?
I told her that, you can't make those type of statements. And she was like, I know and I understand that this is your job and you have to report this, but I have to do what is best for me with my child.
So did you make a police report then?
I did.
Okay. Do you know whether she was hospitalized after that incident?
No, she actually wasn't.
Okay. And that was back in October of 2020, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. How is Ms. Taylor Hamby done with drug screens?
Since she was ordered the treatment plan, her call-in compliance score was 6%. She only completed 2 out of 166 that were offered, and both of those were positive for marijuana.
Did she admit to using marijuana?
She did. She admitted to me and my supervisor that she was going to use marijuana, and she's not going to stop. So she'll complete the drug screens, but she's going to always test positive for marijuana because it's recreational and it's legal, that she doesn't have to follow. She also have stated that she will obtain a marijuana card, but as of now, she hasn't gave the agency or provided the agency with any.
Has she told you why she uses marijuana?
No, she has not.
Okay. Mr. Conley, do you believe Ms. Taylor Hamby has made any progress during or since King came into care back in February of 2020?
No.
Do you believe that King would be at risk of harm if returned to Ms. Taylor Hamby?
Yes.
Where is King? Well, actually, let me ask about King has a putative father, correct?
Yes.
Have you made any attempts to contact, I believe his name is Jerome Shoemate?
Yes. I tried to reach out to him via mail, and I have not received a response at all. But it was also noted that the previous worker had a conversation with him, but since then the previous worker didn't have any conversation with him after.
Okay. How has parenting time been supervised throughout the case? Is that correct?
Yes.
And how has parenting time gone?
Since it came to my agency, parenting time wasn't even taking place. She showed up for one time, and that parenting time was suspended. And since then, she has not had any other. She was offered to come into the office because of threatening behavior that she had made to me. So we brought it into the office as if it was the most safest place for King, and she did not attend any.
When did you take over the case?
Give me 1 second. Could I look for that?
Yeah, if it would help refresh your recollection, yes. Let me just ask you this differently, unless you have it.
I don't have it. I want to say it was in between sometime either August or September, I believe.
Okay, so in the last 3 or 4 months, Ms. Taylor Hamby's only seen King once?
Yes.
Okay. Where is King currently placed?
He's currently placed with his maternal great-grandmother.
And I think you mentioned that there was a CPS investigation. What was the result of that investigation as far as you know?
It came back that he was not being abused or neglected by the caregiver.
Okay, so they did not substantiate any of the claims.
Correct.
Do you have any concerns about that placement?
No.
Is King well bonded with his maternal grandmother?
Yes. His great-grandmother. Yes.
His great grandmother. Is she willing to adopt?
She is.
Have you talked to her about guardianship versus adoption?
I have, but I think that it's in King's best interest as far as adoption, as it's the most stable and permanent for him.
What are her thoughts on that?
She is willing to adopt King.
Okay.
Judge, I would object. That's not responsive.
Does she have a preference, Mr. Conley, one or the other?
As far as adoption?
Adoption or guardianship?
She would prefer to adopt.
Okay. Do you believe that she will keep King away from Ms. Taylor Hamby if Ms. Taylor Hamby continues to be unstable?
Yes.
And do you have an opinion as to what's in the best interest of King as it relates to his mother's parental rights?
I think that it's in his best interest as far as his mother's parental rights being terminated, as it's unsafe. She still has not rectified the issues what brought King into care for the first time and back into care the second time. So I think it's in King's best interest for him to be adopted.
Thank you, Your Honor. I have nothing further.
Mr. Brown?
Yes, Mr. Conley, you indicated that disposition occurred on June 4th of this year, correct?
That is correct.
And according to my calculations, that would mean that 182 days have not elapsed since the issuance of that dispositional order. Is my math incorrect, or would I be correct?
That's correct.
Okay, so that allegation or statutory basis for termination would not apply or cannot apply because we haven't reached that 182 days, correct?
Correct.
How many times have you reached out to Miss Hamby to say, hey, we need to sit down and talk, or we need to get going on this? Has there been any response from her?
I've had multiple conversations with her as far as her completing her services. She stated to me that she would get those completed, and then she would give me excuses saying that she didn't have proper transportation. It's just been excuse after excuse, but we had multiple conversations as far as her actually completing those services that she's required to do.
Has transportation been offered to her, other means of transportation if she didn't have it?
Yes. I've told her that my agency was willing to purchase bus tokens for her. But at the time, actually, our bus system is actually free during COVID. And I've told her you could use public transportation as far as getting to and from the office, as well as I asked her, did she have any other people as far as family or other relatives that will be willing to bring her? And she stated that she doesn't have no support from others.
Okay. Did she give you any indication whatsoever what part of Wayne County she is in? In your report, you mentioned the city of Harper Woods, which is right on the border.
Harper Woods is where the maternal great grandmother lived. But no, she has not given me an accurate or, statement saying exactly where in Wayne County she's staying.
Are you fairly certain that she is even in Wayne County?
From my last conversation with her, yes, that's what she told me.
Okay. Thank you, Judge. I would have nothing further.
I have a few questions. I just quickly did some math. From June 4th to December 4th, by my reckoning, is 184 days. And we are now at December 22nd. That looks like it puts us well over 180 days since disposition.
I would agree, Your Honor.
Judge, I get 5 months, and how I calculated that is an average of 30 days per month. That gets you to 150 days. 6 months is 180 days. So I don't know how. I don't have a calculator here in front of me, but
June, Mr. Brown, I think you left a month out. It wasn't July 4th that there was disposition. It was June 4th. From June to December is 6 months.
that I don't think that's correct. You don't count the month of June. You start off with the month of July. That's the first 30 days. You go July, August, September, October, November, December. Excuse me. You are correct. July, August, September, October, November, December. I'm sorry, you are correct.
Okay. According to the petition, the termination petition, it is alleged that Ms. Hamby was offered 43 parenting time sessions, but only attended 10. Can you verify that?
That is correct. Before, when the case was in Jackson County, she attended some there, and then she attended one here. And those were also as far as in person as well as virtual.
All right. I just wasn't clear that you had testified to that. I think everything else, let me just verify. Those are all the questions I had. And I'm sorry, Ms. McCluskey, I jumped in before you. Did you have any questions for him?
No, I don't have any questions. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right. I shouldn't assume that, even though that's typically the case, that the LGAL doesn't have questions. But anyway, Mr. Way, any redirect?
No, Your Honor.
Any further witnesses?
No, Your Honor.
Any presentation, Mr. Brown or Ms. McCluskey?
No.
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Okay, then I guess we're ready for arguments. Mr. Way?
Thank you, Your Honor. Based on the testimony and the history of this case, I think we're all well aware of Ms. Taylor Hamby's struggles. She did great the first time around. You know, she's been completely different this time. Her appearance in court, it's been very combative. It's clear to me that she's not on her medications. And when she's not, there's not a whole lot we can do for her, unfortunately. She did great when she was on them, but we can't force her to do it. And we've been at it for about 6 months. She's making threats to people. You know, I think based on the testimony, based on the history of this case, termination is clearly, the bases for termination have clearly been met. And I think it's clearly, excuse me, in King's best interest that that the mother's rights be terminated, to frame up for adoption. And then I would just ask the court to find that King has no legal father at this point. Thank you.
I need to briefly reopen the testimony because I remembered the other question I meant to ask Mr. Conley. Mr. Conley, how would you describe the bond that exists between King and his mother?
There's no bond, considering that she hasn't had the chance to actually, she hasn't taken the opportunity to come and actually to come see him. So I would say there's a lack in bond.
Any follow-up questions, counsel, based on that?
No.
Yeah. Mr. Conley, you haven't really even observed any parenting time, have you?
I haven't. Before the parenting time that she had with the caregiver, it was she was supervising those, and because of the behavior that she had displayed, it was ended early. However, she was offered after that. She was offered to have those in the office, in my office, and she has not showed up to any. So no, I haven't had the opportunity as far as watching any parenting time because she hasn't showed up.
But King spent the first nearly 3 years of his life with his mom. So I'm just wondering how you can make the statement that there's no bond when you haven't observed to determine whether there is or not. Just because she hasn't had any parenting time lately, you just really don't know. You're assuming that there isn't any bond because she hasn't seen him in several months. Is that fair?
That's fair.
Thank you, Judge. Nothing further.
Any other questions on this point, counsel?
No, Your Honor.
No, Your Honor.
Okay, Mr. Brown?
Judge King, we all know Miss Hamby, as Mr. Wade said, she does very well when she is on medication. The child is with a relative. The allegations that brought King into care were just because of some perceived erratic behavior. She was making allegations that somebody was after her. And that kind of goes along with her mental illness. I don't think there's ever been any harm, physical harm to King. I'm aware that being around somebody with a mental illness probably can cause psychological harm. So I'm not going to contest that. But I believe that termination of parental rights, considering her health, mental health should not be considered any different than a physical infirmity. She has it. We don't need to stigmatize her mental health. I know she's had some behaviors, but we would be looking at this totally different if this was a physical illness as opposed to a mental illness. I don't think we have as much, whether it's what's the word I'm looking for, whether it's implicit or explicit, we don't treat them the same way. And that's a shame, but that's just the way things are. The child's with the grandparent. The child's safe. There's nothing wrong with doing a guardianship. If Miss Hamby in the future, I can guess that the grandmother's getting up there in age and she's a great grandmother. Miss Hamby may turn it around in the future. And if we close that door right now, we can never open that door again. So I would ask the court to deny the termination, change the goal to guardianship. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. McCluskey?
Your Honor, I also find this to be a kind of a sad situation. I do remember Miss Hamby doing very well, or I'm sorry, Mom doing very well last time around, but I also agree with the agency's or Mr. Way's comments, and I do think the agency's met its burden. However, I do share Mr. Brown's concerns. Obviously, with this being a great grandmother, what happens if there are health issues, and not knowing her age, obviously, that could become an issue. And considering Miss Taylor did so well last time, a guardianship does seem like a good option to me as well. However, I understand the agency's policies restrict us from having that goal if the placement wants to adopt. So we would leave that in the court's discretion. Thank you, Your Honor.
Any further argument, Mr. Way?
Just briefly, Your Honor, as to Mr. Brown's comments about mental health and physical health, I'm certainly not someone to stigmatize someone with mental health issues. It's not something they can help. But I think it's much more comparable to a substance abuse issue, which we see all the time. And I would note that there were substance abuse issues. I think there was a positive test for, I think, cocaine during the CPS case that led to this. And I'm generally not concerned about marijuana because it's legal now. But when you mix marijuana with mental health meds, alcohol, whatever, or you're using it to cope, that's a bigger concern. My biggest concern too with doing a guardianship or something different, we've had Ms. Hamby making threats to go pick up the child and do all these various things. So the relationship there is really strained, I gather, and I think that some sort of finality for the family is in King's best interest. Thank you.
Thank you. So the first thing I want to address is the mother's mental illness. I don't think we treat mental illness any differently than we do physical illness. The issue is not what kind of illness a parent is suffering under. The issue is that parent able to parent? And if they're not able to parent because of physical issues, they're going to be treated the same as inability to parent due to mental health issues. At the end of the day, she has to be there for her child. And whatever the reason, I can certainly find, without regard to intent, I get that she doesn't, we can't hold her responsible for her mental illness. And I would never do that to anyone. But we can hold her responsible for her behaviors. The sad thing is when she's on her medications, as she was last go round, and this is the second go round with King, she can care safely for her child. The problem is she's not willing to be on her meds. And that's clear by the behaviors to which Mr. Conley has testified. So we look at the services that she was ordered to participate in and the conditions that she essentially was ordered to rectify. Parenting classes. She was offered two different parenting classes, didn't follow through with either one. I realized the agency had a change of heart as to which parenting class might be better, but she didn't respond to either one. And she clearly could benefit from parenting classes. She was ordered to participate in a substance abuse assessment, was referred for assessments on two different occasions, failed to appear, disregarded this court's order. She She was ordered to obtain and maintain suitable housing and a legal source of income. I'm not surprised, based on the lack of mental health stability, that she wasn't able to do that. But you need stable housing to parent a child. You need some legal source of income if you're going to be able to care for a child. She was ordered to participate in a psychological assessment. She definitely needed to do that, was referred, behaved so badly apparently that the first referral refused to see her again, and then failed to respond to the second referral. And then drug screens. I granted, she only during the course of this case tested positive for THC, but she only showed up twice for drug screens. I mean, who knows what kind of drugs she was doing? This court treats refusal to appear for a drug test as a positive test. She wholly failed to participate. And the one service that she failed to avail herself of consistently was her visits with the child. Whether her child has some kind of bond with her, I'm assuming, given his age, he certainly knows that she's his mother. It wouldn't surprise me all that he probably still has some affection for her. But what's her bond to him? Because this bond goes both ways. For a parent to be well bonded to a child, not only does there have to be a bond flowing from the child to the parent, there also has to be a bond flowing from the parent to the child. She certainly didn't demonstrate during the course of this case that she had much of a bond, if any, with her child, by reason of her failure to avail herself of the parenting times that were offered. She attended 10 out of 43 sessions, 10. And one of the sessions that she did attend was so disruptive, the visit had to be stopped. I can't imagine what the impact is on a child of having a parent misbehave to the point that the visit had to be canceled. And the misbehavior was directed to placement. Granted, this is a relative, but very clearly she doesn't have a very good relationship with this relative. She's accusing her of mistreating the child, and she's misbehaving during a visit. Clearly, several bases have been established based on this testimony, which the court finds to be clear and convincing. She's been a respondent in a proceeding. 182 days or more have elapsed. The conditions that led to adjudication continue to exist, and there is no reasonable likelihood that those conditions will be rectified within a reasonable period of time, given the child's age. And the court also takes into account the fact that this is the second go-around with this child. So that statutory basis was established. Secondly, the parent fails to provide proper care and custody, and there's no reasonable expectation that the parent will be able to do so within a reasonable period of time. And finally, there's a reasonable likelihood based on the conduct or capacity of Ms. Taylor that the child would be harmed if returned to her home. So we have three separate bases, all of which have been established clearly and convincingly to justify termination of the mother's parental rights. With respect to best interest, I certainly take into account the fact that this child is placed with a relative. And when I know that relative is one with whom the parent has a relationship, one who's likely to continue to allow the parent, when safe, to visit the child, that very often causes me not to terminate, but rather to look at some kind of alternative, such as a guardianship. But a guardianship does not offer the permanency that termination of parental rights and ultimately adoption provides. And here, there appears to be a very strained relationship between placement and Ms. Taylor. I don't see in this case that placement with a relative militates against termination. This is a relative who's willing to adopt, a relative who has provided stability, and one who is able to provide the permanency and stability that Ms. Hamby is unable to provide. So I find that termination is indeed in King's best interest. I also find that King has no legal father. The putative father that was identified has wholly failed to involve himself in these proceedings, to step up and demonstrate any interest in this child whatsoever, which he would have to do by becoming the legal father. He's taken no steps to do that. So I find that King has no legal father and is therefore able to be adopted. We're going to schedule this matter for a post-termination hearing. January 12th at 8:45. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.